There's something about pain that strips away all the unnecessary things, and you see what's most important. And as you do, that's where purpose comes into play. So as time goes on, that purpose, that clarification becomes even clearer. The main reason I wrote the book is because I didn't want to be one of those people who died with his story inside him. And too many people do that.
Hello, Liberty Spenders. Today, I am excited to welcome today's guest, John Hulen. He's a dynamic speaker, a certified life and business coach, an entrepreneur, and author who spent 30 years helping people and organizations find clarity, purpose, and real results. He's passionate about the power of relationships, and through his own journey as a business owner and the host of Relationships and Revenue podcast, he's inspired countless leaders to rethink about how they approach their life and work. And I learned 300 episodes of your podcast.
You actually, we're up to 306 now.
Wow. Well, we're pumped to dive into your story. Let's start your journey. Walk us through your journey to entrepreneurship and coaching, and maybe even how did the podcast emerge out of all that?
Okay. Well, the podcast comes much later in the story than the entrepreneurship part of the story. I know that at least a decent portion of your audience are faith-based folks.
Yes.
So what I'm about to share will resonate with, I think, most of you. Back when I was in college, I started out at a local community college where I live in the Kansas City area, and knowing that my time there would be short, meaning to get my associate's degree, I crammed 2 years into 3.
Yes.
Well, I was working full time and trying to go to school. So trying to figure out where I was going to go next, I kind of needed a plan. And so I had been praying about it for a long time. And then I had an epiphany one day. And then God just said, "You're going to go into ministry." I'm like, what? I was not expecting that at all. I'm like, okay. And truly, it was, as soon as that came, I knew where I was supposed to go to school. I knew immediately. And so I started making plans to go to where I ultimately graduated from was Southwest Baptist University in Bolivar, Missouri. It's in Southwest Missouri.
Uh-huh.
And again, I crammed another 2 years into 3. Now, part of that is because I actually started down the business administration track, and less than a semester in, and like, no.
Yeah.
So when you switch majors, and mine was a big one, I went to religious studies after that. So
Yeah. Yes.
I ended up graduating with 166 credit hours, I think.
Wow.
Way, way more than you could possibly ever need. But that was my start, toward ministry being the ultimate goal, because at that time, now this would have been the early 90s.
Uh-huh.
Gosh, pretty much if you were in ministry, it was a church gig. Is pretty much what it was. Now it just would depend upon what you did there. And I knew it wasn't going to be music, and I knew it wasn't going to be kids, because trust me, nobody wanted me working in either one of those areas. When I say kids, I'm talking about little kids.
Right.
At that time, my emphasis was more on the student side, the youth, the teenage side. And that's where I eventually met my then, who would become my wife. It was my last year there, her first year. We ended up getting married, and we moved to Kansas City, where I went to seminary, and she continued her collegiate career at a university close by. So fast forward, I did get my master's degree in divinity while I was at the school. So I graduated in 97. 97 is when I graduated. Man, I went to so many interviews. I mean, literally, I bet I did 1,000 phone interviews trying to find that right church gig. We probably went 7 or 8 different places all across the country, and none of it was right. I ended up turning that into a corporate gig in essentially in IT. I did the corporate gig for a while, and then when the .com boom happened, I ended up leaving the corporate gig to do that. And I was there for like 6 months before I got fired because apparently that's what the guy who started it thought that was a great business model.
Right.
Truly. He really thought that was a great business model. Bring people in, work them to death, and then toss them to the side like a used napkin. Oh, yeah. That happened a lot. And so I was out of work at that point for about 6 months. I mean, I was still doing ministry, but nothing like how I thought I would be. My then father-in-law came to me because he had built a building to move all of his businesses into. And he said, I mean, he didn't mean anything by it. It was just kind of his way. He said, you got nothing else going on. Do you want to come clean my building? And I hadn't thought about that. I'm like, maybe. And he goes, well, here's the deal. I got 2 bids to clean the building. If you come $1 under the cheapest one, it's yours. So I'm like, okay. That was the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. And so that would have been in late 2001 is when that started. So I've been going, close to 25 years now on that entrepreneurial journey. And I've started and closed down several businesses since then. The cleaning business still exists. So that's early 2000s. Again, this is a very long and involved story, but I won't share all of that.
Yes.
Let me just say that there was a divorce that happened in all of there.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just say this to all of you who are believers. Trust me when I tell you, as much as believers struggle with that whole notion of divorce and what that means, let me amplify that by, a factor of maybe 1,000 because of someone who was in and continues to be in ministry.
Uh-huh.
There are, let's just say, different expectations.
Right.
For people who are in ministry when it comes to divorce. And so I went through a divorce in 2010. It was finalized April 1st. Not making that up. It really happened April 1st, 2010. So, I mean, we're coming up on 16 years now here, really close. And as I went through the process of trying to get better for me, knowing that if I ever wanted to have another relationship with a woman, let alone better relationships like with my kids, my friends, clients, etc., I needed to do some hardcore work on me. And so I did. And as I did that, I learned a lot of things about myself, and many, many things changed for me. One of which became the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I started the Relationships and Revenue podcast, I wanted to help 2 groups, which, folks, for those of you who have ever considered doing a podcast, you don't do that. You don't have 2 target audiences, but I did. And I'll very briefly explain why. I wanted to help other men not end up like me. That was number 1. And a very close second was I wanted to help entrepreneurs. Because when I first started as an entrepreneur, I had almost no help.
Right.
And I just felt like I learned so many ways to do things wrong and had to correct them. It's like, why not try and share that knowledge with other folks who either are entrepreneurs, maybe been doing it for a short amount of time, or people who are thinking about doing it. That's how it started. It's morphed a little since then. And the emphasis isn't so much directly on men. Mm-hmm. And that changed, Kurt, quite honestly, because when I started looking at the demographics of the show, people who were paying attention to it, about 55% were women. I'm like, okay, maybe I need to make some adjustments. And quite frankly, right about the time I did that is when I changed that slight direction. I mean, it really wasn't even changing direction. It was just kind of like a bump, just like a little slight adjustment. That's when things really started to open up. And that's when I've had amazing people like you on the show. And so I guess, and this sounds so weird, it feels weird in my head to think it, let alone to say it out loud. But because of my divorce, the trajectory of my life changed in so many great ways, I didn't even think that was possible.
If you're listening to this show, it's probably because you understand something most people don't. Marketing to Liberty Spenders isn't just about ads or tactics, it's about trust. And in the real world, trust moves through relationships. And that's why private introductions and deal flow are such a core part of what we do.
So FastPass is a private introduction and deal flow network for Christian and conservative leaders who already have influence and want to scale fast. It's not open networking, it's intentional introductions between people who already share alignment. We've seen one client land a $25,000 opportunity from a single introduction. Another told us that FastPass has become his largest source of referrals, not because of volume, but because of fit. And yet another closed her equity round at a key moment just due to the right introduction.
When you book a one-to-one consult with us, we're not handing you a list or making big promises. Instead, we're having a real conversation about what you're building, who you want to meet, and whether FastPass makes sense for this season for you. So no pressure, no hustle, and no awkward pitch from us.
Yeah. If you're ready to grow through relationships instead of forcing everything on your own, head to libertyspenders.com/FastPass and book a one-to-one consult with us.
In worst case, you leave with clarity. Best case, the right introductions change the trajectory of what you're building.
Okay, back to the episode.
Well, and one of the things you're up to now is you're about to launch your first book.
Yes.
And so what's the title of the book if you've got it nailed down? What's it about?
Here's another one of those, it's been in the process for a while kind of things. And just for many reasons, I started this 10 years ago.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And I won't get into the reasons why it's taken this long, but you asked the title. It's called the F6 Secrets of Relationships. F as in Frank. So it's the F6 Secrets of Relationships, identifying ways to recharge, restore, and rescue deep connections. The main reason I wrote the book is because I didn't want to be one of those people who died with his story inside him. And too many people do that, I think.
Yes.
And so that's one of the reasons I wrote it. Another one was, it is written for men. I will be very candid and upfront in writing the book. It is for men. However, I'll tell you, I've had a couple dozen women read the book, and all of them said they couldn't put it down.
Wow.
So I know that women can relate to things that are in the book. If for no other reason, it's to learn stuff about guys. So
Right.
Excuse me. So with the book, the great thing about it is that while it does speak directly to men, the principles in the book actually apply to business as well. Every single one of them does. And one thing I didn't expect, Kurt, when I was writing the book, I was about 90% of the way done. And truly, I had another one of those epiphany experiences. That's the only way I can explain it. I mean, because I was getting close to being done, and I just was praying one day, and then God just said, you did exactly what I asked you to do with this book. However, this is the first. Oh, and I'm like, what? First of what? First of at least 3, which I know about now. And so first one is on relationships, which I believe is what life and business is all about. So that's kind of like the base. And then building on top of that, so there's relationships, there's leadership, and then there's entrepreneurship. So I know there's going to be at least 2 others for a total of at least 3.
Wow. Well,
and that was unexpected.
Yes. So when does book 1, volume 1 come out?
That's a great question. It is coming out this year. For those of you who have written books before, you'll know the pain that I'm about to describe. But there's the writing of the book, which is its own special pain, especially the first time you do it.
Right.
Then there's everything else that goes into a book. There's that whole, what does the cover on the outside look like, and how many different times does it change?
Oh, yes.
Then there's the interior design, and then all the little things. That's the stuff where we are right now, trying to get all of that lined up and getting it just right. And so my goal is to have that done by mid-year.
Yeah. Having published one, it's awesome to see it and hold it in your hands for the first time. So I look forward to that for you and for what God's going to do through the writing of that book. And that is sort of your focus for your consulting and the clients you work with is relationships, right? So is it within the business environment, helping improve communication? How does your consulting and coaching typically work?
What I like to tell people, I'm going to focus on the coaching side of it for just a minute. I mean, the consulting does kind of bleed into it some, but as far as the coaching is concerned, and it seems like it's two different things, but it's actually not. So there's coaching that I do for men. So that's more of the life kind of coaching. And then there's the business coaching that I do, which is aimed at, people who are starting businesses or who have been in business for themselves up to 2, maybe 3 years. So fairly early on. That's kind of my niche. That's kind of my groove, the group that I seem to be able to help the most. But the one thing that I do when it comes to the business coaching that's a little bit different than a lot of my friends who do it is I bring that personal or that life part of it into it because I believe so strongly that if you want to be great in business, it actually starts at home.
Right.
And I'll tell you, Kurt, I have asked several friends that I have that are in HR in these Fortune 500, even a couple of them are Fortune 100 companies. None of them will go on the record. None of them will. However, off the record, if I propose something to them, they don't disagree with what I say. And it's this. I know that these companies are losing billions of dollars a year to people who call in sick, who aren't sick because they've got problems at home and they haven't been able to deal with them. So they've got to take time off of work to try and figure out what to do there. But if they had some new skills that they could learn to get better at how to handle things at home, not only would they not have to call in to say they're sick when they're not, they'd be more productive while at work.
Well, that's been my personal experience as an owner too. And I think COVID made it worse in some respects because people were working from home across the kitchen table with their spouse. And so there wasn't any separation. There wasn't like, okay, we have 8 hours to miss each other.
Yeah.
We're now talking over each other, trying to find a quiet corner in the house so we can each have work calls, And because they were doing all this remote, you didn't have a chance as an employer to recognize when somebody was coming into work late 3 days in a row and their hair was kind of messy or their eyes looked a little puffy, right? You just didn't see any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And, I certainly recognized it. And those kinds of home issues affect work. I know for me, right? If Chris and I aren't getting along or if the kids are being a little grouchy, I'm less productive. I was just telling you just before we got on, the kids were a little grouchy last night. They were not, they wanted to sleep with mom and dad. They didn't want to sleep in their own bed. So of course they lasted in their own bed for about an hour or two. Then they came downstairs. Right. And they're waking you up and they're crawling around. And then the second one comes on. And so those family things are absolutely important. So I can see why businesses, to your point, they might not want to say, hey, if we could just fix people's marriages, we'd have a better company.
Right.
But it's absolutely connected. I mean, I think the honest ones would say it, right? Marriage, relationship, whatever the thing is, right? We're all going home to somebody, some relationship, family members, even if they're not our spouse, right? And having those things together puts you in a much better, more productive mindset for work.
For sure.
Well, I think that's an important work that you do. And I think you come into some of these organizations, some of them just have you speak to them about it as well, sort of as a, I don't know if motivational speaker is the right word. That always gives you a Tony Robbins vibe. Maybe you're not like a Tony Robbins, but like what's you come in and do more like workshops or what's that look like?
Well, it's different. Depends on the organization, honestly. Depends on what their needs are. Sometimes what I'll do when I come into an organization, I'm hired to speak, and that's it. And that's all it is, and that's perfectly fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and that works great. Other times I come in and I speak, and it's kind of a precursor to other work that we do together. And they may have a specific group within the organization that they want me to work with, at least at first, kind of as a test group to see how some of these ideas that I have, some of these theories that I have can work in their environment. And if this specific target group, it seems to work well, then they'll release it, so to speak, release me onto other parts of the organization. Sounds like I'm a virus or something.
Well, I understood. And that's a great way to introduce yourself to some of these businesses, to come in, speak to the employees, get to know them, and get a sense of how you can help. So I just had this idea, something to ask.
Please.
A little bit of a change in topic. So You're going to hop in a time machine.
All right.
Because you've talked about how your life has changed a lot, with the advent of the podcast, with the divorce you went through. If you could hop in a time machine and give your younger self a pep talk. So you're a professional speaker now. So you're coming as a professional speaker to your younger self. And you're going to give a pep talk. What advice and encouragement would you share? Is there a warning you would give? What would you share with yourself?
Wow. Let's see. Honestly, the first thing that comes to mind is, I guess you could call it a piece of advice that I was given fairly early on as a speaker. It's two parts. Number one, you're never as great as they say you are, and you're never as bad as they say you are.
Well, that's probably good advice, right?
I think so. It helps keep things in check for me. It's a way for me to remember, okay, it's how I try to stay humble.
Mm-hmm. What would you say are people's limiting beliefs about relationships that really get in the way?
Well, one is that they think that they can be everything to their partner. I mean, that's a big one. It's like, no, you're not. You're not as much as you think you are. And I guess kind of maybe the other side of that coin, if you've become that for somebody else, we need to pump the brakes here. And it's like, whoa, hold on. That's way too much pressure on me as your partner. I wasn't designed to have that in your life. I'm designed to be there, to be that helpmate, that complement, not the everything. Because if I screw up somehow, then your world comes crashing down. So,
right.
Like, no, that's a pedestal I don't belong on. In fact, I don't even belong on one, period.
Right. I like that perspective. I think sometimes, you do a lot of work with men. We men in relationships struggle with vulnerability, right? And that's something we talk about a lot. It comes up a lot when you do like any relationship, anything. The importance of being vulnerable. And that's not just a relationship issue at home. That's one in the workplace. What is your usual advice and approach to a man, both at home and in leadership, when it comes to vulnerability?
Well, I'll start with home, and I'll try and make the transition into the business world. When it comes to our partners, for most of us men, it is a woman. And so the women in our lives, what they need from us more than anything else is they need to know what's going on with us on the inside. The thing that we hate to do more than anything else. And so, and I get pushback from men all the time. It's like, John, you don't understand. It's just, I can't do it. It's not in me to do it. I'm like, okay, let's just for the moment say it's not in you. Okay. I'm not sure I believe that, but for now, I'm going to say that I do. When it comes to your work, let's say that your boss comes to you one day and says, you know what, as a business, we're having to change directions. And in order to do that, there's this brand new skill set that you're going to have to learn. Now, we're giving you plenty of time. We're giving you 6 months to learn how to do it. But at the end of those 6 months, if you don't have that skill set down, you're gone. Because this is the direction we're going, and you have to be able to do this thing, whatever it is. So you as a man will do whatever it takes to gain that new skill set in order to continue your employment. How much more important is that number one relationship in your life? It's infinitely more important for you to learn how to be able to share what's going on with you on the inside. Because for women, Us sharing with them, that is their relational oxygen. And when we don't give that to them, we are killing them. That's not an exaggeration. So that's what happens. That's what happens when we're not vulnerable. So that means that the onus is on us as men to learn how to do that.
Yes.
And that takes practice. It's a new skill set. Honestly, that's all it is. And when you think of it as a skill set rather than something scary, like this idea of feelings, leave the feelings part of it out of it. Just say, it's a new skill set I have to learn how to do. And it takes practice. So practice with her. And it's going to feel weird. Like any other thing you've ever done that's been brand new, it's going to feel awkward and you're going to fall down and you're going to figuratively scrape your knees. It's going to happen. But the more you do it, like anything else you've ever done, the better you will get at it. And she will appreciate the effort. I promise you she will. She'll begin to notice that. And it'll change your relationship forever.
Well, it's probably good advice for me. I'm like all men, in that regard. Do you really want to know what's going on up there? And I'm sure, the answer is yes, but that means I've got to explain the labyrinth that is in my head and emotions, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's excellent advice. Before we get into our lightning round, I wanted to circle back on why and purpose, right? Because you've been through, you went to school to be in the ministry and you're doing this public speaking and coaching and you've got your podcast. Many people struggle to figure out why or what should I be doing or what's my purpose. Was there a specific moment where you feel like you discovered it? Was it something that you just sort of evolved on over time? Maybe even how would you define it? What, particularly for somebody making shifts in their life, how should they be thinking about things like, okay, I have a new purpose in life. Here's how I'm going to find it.
A great question. It's similar for most people, but there will be differences among folks who are pursuing that, who are trying to figure that out. When I have people ask me that question in this way, when they say, how do I do it, John? What I go back to, and nobody really likes it
right.
when I say it, I'll just be honest with you. It's like, how do I figure? It's like, are you sure you want to know? I always answer their question with a question, which is something you're not supposed to do. I know that, Kurt. You're not supposed to do that. But there's a reason I do that. And my question is this: are you sure you want to know the answer? I always ask that question because if there's even a hint that they're not really sure, I'm like, wait until you are, then come back to me. Because that should tell them the gravity of the answer that's coming.
Yeah.
But here it comes. If you really want to figure that out, it's going to require you to go through the worst pain you have ever felt in your entire life. It absolutely is. It's going to require pain because pain is clarifying. It does. When you choose to work through your pain rather than avoid it or pretend it's not there or try and bypass it in some way or, dare I say, numb it in some way, and there are a whole host of ways to do that. But when you choose to do the hard work of working through that pain, purpose is on the other side of pain. That's where it sits waiting for us. And far too many of us are unwilling to do that to get to the purpose. But that's where purpose is. It sits there waiting for us. And that requires, honestly, one thing, Kurt: imperfect action. So there is no great, perfect, exact way to get to purpose. It's knowing that I'm going to have to go through some stuff. I hate to overuse the word clarifying, but it is. There's something about pain that strips away all the unnecessary things, and you see what's most important. You begin to figure that out. And as you do, that's where purpose comes into play. And I will say that for me anyway, I'm not going to say this for everybody, but it's been my experience, and honestly, for most of the people I've worked with, it's been theirs, that it's not a one time and it's forever set. It's more of think of it in terms of like a funnel.
Yeah.
When you begin to figure out the purpose, you get through the big filter that's at the top of the funnel and you go in. But what do funnels do? They start out big and they get smaller as you go down. And think of going down as time. So as time goes on, that purpose, that clarification becomes even clearer, more and more and more. So when I think in terms of ministry, what I thought it was going to be for me back in the early 90s is very different than what ministry looks like for me today. Totally different. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to make some people mad, and I don't care because that's how I'm wired up.
All right.
Here we go. I do more ministry in business than I ever did inside the four walls of a church. Way more. It's not even close. They're not even in the same stratosphere. Not even the same. I dare anyone who's in a traditional church job to prove me wrong.
I love that as we transition into our lightning round. We like to ask every one of our guests the same 3 questions. The goal is 90 seconds each. This first one, I think, is the toughest one to answer in 90 seconds. We ask people to picture, hopefully decades from now, you're lying in your bed in your final hours. You're looking back on your life. How will you know you had a life well lived?
If what I did made a difference in at least one person's life, as far as I'm concerned, it's well lived.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yes. All right. I like the succinctness of that answer. 90 seconds now on any topic that's been interesting you lately. It just needs to be off topic. So maybe it's a hobby, spiritual insight, good book, sports team you want to sing the praises of. 90 seconds on something that's got you going down the rabbit hole.
Oh, gosh. This has been, I guess you could call this a hobby of mine. Neuroscience, the brain.
Yes.
Fascinates me to no end. Anytime I can learn something new about the brain, how it works, what impact it can have on me as a person, what I do in life, what I do in business, I'm there for it. So I can't get enough when it comes to neuroscience and the brain.
Yeah, I like it. And then I want to end with your best 90-second pitch, either for the podcast or maybe it's for people to have you as a speaker. What do you do? Who should find you? How do you help them? How do they find you? Gratuitous self-promotion here for the last 90 seconds.
Great. Hey, everybody. I'm John Hulen. I am a professional speaker. I'm a coach. I am a podcast host. I'm a voiceover artist and author. And the way you can find me is IamJohnHulen.com. That's Hulen. IamJohnHulen.com. And I bring to you decades of experience when it comes to leadership, when it comes to teamwork, when it comes to working with others, when it comes to improving relationships in order to get better in who you are and what you do. Because life and business are all about relationships, and I'm here to help you.
I love it. It's been wonderful to have you on. I'm going to say my favorite line from here, purpose is on the other side of pain. I wrote that down. I know when I've had a good moment on the podcast, when I think I got to take a moment and write this down, I think that was an important insight for a lot of folks, myself included. I thank you so much for joining, John. And as he said, anyone who wants to learn more about John, IamJohnHulen.com. Check him out. Also, check out the podcast, Relationships and Revenue. I imagine you're on all of the major platforms, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and the like.
Oh, yeah.
There is an episode on there particularly interesting that I recorded with John. And thank anyone who has taken 30 minutes to spend time with us. We know how precious your time is. and I appreciate it considerably. If you liked what you heard, please click the like and subscribe to help other people find us, and so you can be notified of new episodes. And if you want to learn a little bit more about what Krista and I are up to, check us out in our new book at www.libertyspenders.com. Until next time,